Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the SMG Blacklist podcast. I'm one of your hosts, number 23 on the list, Jacqueline Grosky, and with me is...
Number 13, Melissa Maxey.
We're here to talk about Leonard Caul, number 62 on the list. And Leonard seems to be, at first, almost one of the bad guys that we're looking for, right?
Yeah, because it starts out and it shows him in an apartment, and he has all these pictures of Reddington and Liz, and he has all these voice recordings, like he's been watching them and following them, and then we see, and he pulls apart this tape on his neck, and he's got this gash, like he's had stapled together. It looks like a hack job.
Yeah, I really didn't make the connection between the neck and the apartment scene. When they went after the mysterious phone call, and they went and found the pool of blood. Well, that was...
Yeah.
That actually was Leonard's blood, but I really thought in that opening that he was either a spotter for the snipers or he was the sniper.
Yeah, I thought he was the main part of the team. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
You know, that he was after Red and Liz, and that he was nefarious, like he was gonna hurt him or something.
But we were wrong. It was a red herring because...
That's a good call. Red herring.
A red herring. Red Reddington herring. So, at the end of the last episode, Red's gotten shot. He's lying on the street. And this time, they come running. They're taking Red out in the limousine or the SUV, I forget. And they're going along. And Liz is like, you gotta get him to the hospital. But...
Yeah. Liz is very concerned for him. She's very caring. She tries to quiet him down in the back seat, and he's trying to tell her something, and and then she gets on her phone and calls Cooper. She's like, Cooper, we need a team down here. We're, on our way. We have Reddington. He's critical. And Dembe grabs her phone and tosses it out the window. And Cooper's like, where did she go? And it was awesome because Dembe, he handed her his phone, and he's like, call this number. And when you get someone on the line, say it was *77 or something like that.
That's what she had to call, *77.
Oh, that's what it was.
And then Mr. Kaplan answers, and she's like,
who is this? And Kaplan's like, where are you? Oh, Mr. Kaplan. What the heck?
It took 3 or 4 times to get her to tell her where she was.
I know. Kaplan's like, I'm busy. Get busy. I love Mr. Kaplan. I think Mr. Kaplan needs her own show. I mean, seriously, she is one of the best characters that I've seen. She's just no nonsense. She gets stuff done. Anything that happens, she just takes care of it. The second they say that, she all of a sudden she gets on her phone. And what does she do? She sends out a text to I don't know how many people 20 people. They get these texts and they're whatever they're doing, they stop what they're doing and they leave. So there's a doctor, there's a nurse, there's an ambulance, a paramedic, and all these people start gathering all this stuff in a warehouse that she tells Liz where the warehouse is. And they start putting stuff together. If there's blood and there's machinery and they have everything they need to do what they need to do for Red.
I thought it was amazing. They all got this message, code *77. They just take off. And that was really cool. You know who Mr. Kaplan reminds me just a little of?
Ew.
Red's version of Mike the Cleaner from Breaking Bad. Don't you kind of see that?
Yes, I totally see that.
Yeah. She's got the serious demeanor, and she's always ready to take care of business. So they get they get everything together. They've got the squad going, and they start setting up shop. And then we go back and we see back at the ranch, and Cooper's talking to the team, and they're all trying to figure out what's going on. So during that time, Red says you have to find Leonard Caul. Right?
Yeah, so Liz gets the team working on that. And in the meantime, she wants to get FBI down there to help them. She wants someone down there to protect them. And she wants Cooper to send some people.
Right. And of course, that's where I think we kind of get the first leak, because Cooper gets pulled in with his boss and Connolly. And you need to tell us where they are. And he says, I can't. And Connolly at first is, I understand you got to keep these things to a minimum, and, which is true. The more people you tell, of course, you've got two very high-ranking officers. And if at that point you get a leak, and you kind of did, so unfortunately, it's one of those two people.
Yeah, so the FBI shows up at the warehouse, and Liz goes out to meet him, and all of a sudden from behind, I'm like, what the heck's going on? Because Kaplan comes out with her gun drawn, and she shoots him. I'm like, what? And then she comes forward, and she's like, those guys are not with the FBI. Our warehouse is not protected, and we're gonna have to move Reddington. We're gonna have to do something to protect Reddington.
Right. Well, she noticed that the agents had the wrong weaponry to be federal agents. I think that was the first clue. He said at least one of them. And so she shot both just in case. Liz was freaking out. It was like, what did you do?
So with all the gunfire happening, the doctor gets shot. And so the surgeon that was supposed to help Reddington get the bullet out of his chest is like on the ground. And so Liz, this was a weird, I wasn't expecting this. Liz calls an old boyfriend. And he's a surgeon, and they're on the phone talking about how he's mad at her because I guess he proposed to her and she dumped him. He's like on the phone. She's like, I really need your help. I really need your help. And he's like, we can dump me. I'm like, this isn't high school. This is like a serious FBI matter.
Right.
Get act together.
He's being all hurt and his poor feelings but yeah, wasn't he was in the first season where, she was kind of establishing this relationship with Tom, and I seem to remember them kind of interacting. Am I wrong?
No, they did. There was an interaction because they talk about it a little bit in the episode, and I'm not sure if that was in season. I'm not sure. He just mentioned something about coming in and seeing. Maybe Liz had an affair with Tom because she was dating that guy, and then the next thing he knew, Tom and her were engaged. So I wonder if there was like some sort of maybe that happened.
Well, when we go to the end, towards the apology at the very end of the episode, the reason that Tom had come in, he was supposed to remain at arm's length. And we'll talk about the rest of it. They weren't supposed to get involved at that point. And, and Tom and her did get involved, and partly because I think Tom did have feelings with her, but also Tom had switched allegiance because he was afraid of Red. It was a tricky dance there, but she had gotten involved with this guy. Things kind of get close to Tom because Tom's been kind of inserted into her situation, and he's a school teacher and stable, and everything seems great. And so she shuts everything down. Of course, all of a sudden you need a crack surgeon to close an open artery that they just found. I love the way that Liz had started barking orders at them. It's like it'll take 20 minutes to close, and you got 15. And
yeah, they needed to close the wound because they had to move him because the rest of the team was going to show up. So she gets that other, was a nurse or something. She had some training to close, and then she's like, we're moving Red. And so the next thing we see is Liz like in another warehouse, and she's got her gun drawn and she's going around corners, and all of a sudden Tom pops out. And I'm like, oh crap, she went to Tom's place. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I thought maybe, I could have a shot at, having that life I always wanted or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, Liz is trying to get Reddington taken care of, and she's got all these boyfriends on the side going, please, Liz, take me back.
Poor Liz, or lucky Liz, I guess. I don't know, maybe. But
so they end up staying, at Tom's place, and when she calls Cooper, she doesn't tell him the address. Like, she just says that they found another secure location because she knows there's, the leak, and she doesn't want anybody to know where they are at.
Right. I'm going back to Liz. I love what Tom said when she asked the question. He says, I live here. Like,
what are you doing here? I live here.
She went to his place. What did she expect? Well, I'm sure she thought he was out of town, but if just to remind everybody, on the last episode, he had gotten all his documents and was supposed to be out of town. So
she gave him his last kiss goodbye, so he should be gone, right?
That's right.
No, he liked the kiss. He wants to stay.
Note to self: if you're saying goodbye, no goodbye kiss.
So the doctor shows up and takes a look at Reddington and comes out and tells Liz that he has the bullet is a compression cap.
Concussion.
Which means that
I think it was a
compression.
Compression cap?
Yeah, he said it was something that it's like a bomb, basically. It should have exploded in his chest when it hit him, but it didn't.
Right.
And so he's like, gotta go mine it out. He's like, look, this is dangerous, and I know who that guy is. And he goes, I have a huge loan. I like worked my way through school, and I owe like $376,000, and he's like, I'm not gonna do it, or unless I get paid. And Liz is like, oh my gosh, just what the heck? And he's like using his, you dumped me thing again. And Tom is like, him and Tom are like in the same proximity, and they start talking about how he came in and Tom was in his like boxer shorts or something. And Tom's like, well, she dumped me too, or something like that. I'm like, Reddington is dying on the table in there. And these two boyfriends are fighting over who gets to have Liz. I'm like, what? I'm like, everybody is so messed up.
That was pretty funny. It was a little bit of testosterone going on there.
And Kaplan saves the day because she, she's kind of hiding in the background, and she pulls out her briefcase and she's like, I got $500,000. Are we good? And he's like, okay. She's like, it's for contingencies. We always have it on hand. I'm like, what doesn't she have? She has everything in her back pocket.
I know. You have to respect Mr. Kaplan.
So we go back to the post office, and everyone is like gathered around there trying to figure out who this Leonard Caul is, and they find out his name is Joseph McCrae. They have a picture from 1981. It's he was in covert surveillance. He was their tech guy. Basically, he's like a ghost. So they're going through all his files, trying to figure out where, who he was. And Cooper's like, well, I know what his CO was. It's Helen Jubel or something. And then Tom Connolly was legal counsel. So there's the Tom Connolly. There's his connection, right?
Right.
So Cooper goes and talks to her. And he's like, she's feeling him out. He's feeling her out. She's feeling him out. And he's like cutting to the chase. He's like, look, I have direct orders that I can get whatever I need to get from you. He's like, I just need you to tell me where he's at. And she's like, he's scared because he's been working with Reddington, and he got hurt and he has nowhere to go. And so she wants Reddington found, and she doesn't have any idea that Reddington's working with Cooper. And so she gives him all the information he wants about where Leonard is. Yeah,
and the funny thing is, I think who said it best? How are we going to find Leonard Caul? And was it Red that says said it? He'll find you.
He'll find you. Yeah, said that.
So we go for so we're looking for Leonard. And we go back and the little interchange between Dembe and Liz, and they've got to go back. She's got to go to his flat.
Yeah, she's got to go to Reddington. So Dembe sends her to Reddington's flat, and he tells her like 3 times that Reddington's not supposed to know she goes there. He says there's a desk, and there's a false door underneath, and there's a briefcase, and he wants her to bring it back.
Right, and really reiterating she really shouldn't be there, but he just can't leave because Red's safety right now is really paramount.
His concern. Mm-hmm.
And
so
they're barely holding the leaks together. They're in a safe house, but safety's tenuous.
The time is ticking because he knows that any minute now they're going to be compromised again.
So this is a big thing for the listeners and the watchers of the show is the relationship between Liz and Red, because she goes in there and not only are there pictures of her and somebody in a uniform, which it was either Red or maybe even too old to be Red. It may be Red's father in a military uniform. And then she sees a picture of herself with what looks to be her mom, but because of the glare in the picture, you really can't see her face.
Yeah, it's just her mom and her, and she looks like she's 2 or 3 on a swing set.
Yeah.
And so she takes a picture of it because she's like, she knows who it is in the picture. And then she sees pictures of herself all over the place. There's a graduation picture, and there's pictures at all ages of her.
Mm-hmm.
And the place is very, like, It looks pretty comfortable, but it's tiny. But there's a lot of memorabilia stuff in there. There's lots of pictures, and he has a cat, and I mean, it's just like. So she gets the briefcase, and as she's getting ready to, leave, she's checking the place over, and she finds the key. So remember the key. So back in that episode where Reddington found that key in that glass jar.
Yep.
That's the key she found. And she opens the door.
Ta-da.
Dun, dun, dun. Leonard Caul found her.
Why don't we go back inside? And it's definitely not for a love scene.
He's got his gun drawn.
I did think it was a great exchange because he starts to say, look, I know that you've been talking to my former CO, which is commanding officer, and I don't like people rooting around in my kind of covert life. So there's only two options. Either you're here to arrest me or kill me, or option number two, you're here to talk to me, for Red. And so he sets his gun down and just stops and says, all right, Liz, which is it going to be?
Yeah. So she says, tell me about Reddington, or tell me about the Fulcrum, or.
It was the Fulcrum. The Reddington issue is okay. We'll get that at the very end, but that's with Tom.
So she hands him the briefcase. She hands Leonard the briefcase, and he's like, where's the key? She hands him the key, and he pulls the top off it, and it's just a little, insert stick. And you can see where it goes right in the briefcase. And then he wants to know where the other piece is, the Fulcrum piece. And she hands it to him, and he plugs it in and turns it on. And then you can see Liz's face, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what the heck is on there? Because she's totally, all of the information going through, she's just like, and the next, and then they don't show it to us. And I'm like, what? And the next thing we know, they're in a car, and they're driving back to Reddington because Leonard needs to meet with Reddington.
Well, we did see some sort of video, so we knew it was something seen, and I thought it was going to be more like a history thing, or something back from the 60s, or something in her histories. So it was really clever. It kind of,
Well, and she talks about it in the car. She's like, all the names on the list. She's like, all those people that are in on this,
CEOs and top administrators in the government. But that's just the beginning. There's actually more than, what she's seen.
So on their way back, they see Liz is looking out the window, and she sees all of these, she basically sees the strike team that's going to hit Red's location. I mean, they're all dressed up in weird utility uniforms, and she totally picks them out. So she calls. Did she end up calling Dembe? Oh, she calls Cooper and tells Cooper and wants him to send out a team to help protect them. And then she calls Dembe and lets him know they're coming, and they're in a bad place. I mean, Reddington just had surgery. He really can't be moved. The strike team's coming, and Tom ends up, he's like, I'm going to stay, and I need a gun. You're going to have to give me a weapon, because the strike team's coming, and we only have a few men here that are going to help protect this place. And Reddington has a heart-to-heart with Tom, too. Tom goes in there and talks to him after he's awake, and basically tells him that he's out. Basically tells him, this is where we get the story about how Tom was hired, and how when Red told him, because basically something happened and he switched to, alliances with Berlin, and he told Red that he was the one hurting Liz. He had no intention of hurting Liz, but that it just happened that way. Things just happened because Red's put stuff in motion.
And that I did have a little problem with that, because he went to Berlin, about as opposite as you could possibly go. I mean, he knew that Red had put him in there to protect Liz, and that Berlin really wanted to kill not only Red, but anybody attached to Red. So, we get the puppy dog eyes from Tom yet again. However, Tom's version of the truth isn't 100% accurate.
No, because Tom did it for his own personal reasons. He did it because he was in love with Liz. He wanted to stay with Liz, and Red told him to beat it, because Red says that he hired Tom to protect Liz. And when he found out that they were intimate, he fired him.
Right.
He fired him. And so then it told him to get out of there. And he didn't want to. He wanted to be with Liz. And so he, to protect himself, got himself aligned with Berlin. Well, that's Tom's problem.
Right.
Red's trying to protect her. And then Tom does the most stupidest thing ever, thinking of himself.
Right. And he's trying to blame everything on Red, which... Red, if this hadn't started, Red wouldn't be here. Yet we do know that this all started 30-something years ago, either because Red is her father or is so close to the family that the ties have already been made. But yeah, Tom's puppy dog, I'm disappointed and hurt story didn't completely fly.
Yeah,
But it did show that he does still care for her, and he's going to be around, and he did help the team, and he's still helping to protect Liz. So I think somehow they're going to find at least a very occasional role, or it'd be interesting to see what they actually do, because I don't see him in the future being still an everyday role.
Right.
I don't see them kind of moving back in together and implanting babies. So
no,
it'd be interesting to see where they go with that.
So at the warehouse, this was an interesting thing. Okay, so Mr. Kaplan comes in to see Red, and she's going to stand by his bed and protect him.
Right.
And he calls her by her first name. He calls her Kate, and he tells her that she has to go. And he tells her she has to leave because if something happens to him, she knows what to do. They left that a big old, question mark for the episode, because she leaves.
Right.
And then I'm just like, what in the heck? Because what's going to happen if something happens to Red? What is it she's going to do?
Well, originally it would be she would release the information from the Fulcrum, but it's too early because does he even know that? I
think it has something to do with Liz. I think that if something happens to Reddington, that Mr. Kaplan has something in place to protect Liz. She's the one that's going to be taking care of her.
Right.
She's going to take over the whole role. She's basically got everything in the in Red's organization. She's taking care of stuff behind the scenes. And I think that she's the godmother or grandmother or something. Something happens to me, you're going to take care of my charge.
Right. And so they go back, all hell breaks loose. It's like the Custer's Last Stand or...
Oh my God, that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh,
They did it in slow motion. It was sweet.
Oh yeah, it's almost like watching the Alamo go down. They're coming in with just the full resources from the director of clandestine affairs. He's got unlimited resources. He's already said, do whatever it takes. So even if their team goes down, there's got to be a team behind them and another team behind. And people are going down there. People are getting injured until there's...
Dembe is she's holding people in front of him and killing people. And they show Tom and he's lobbing bombs and stuff, shooting everybody. And Reddington he's a sitting duck. He can't hardly move. And it was cool what they did because you could see the desperation on his face, and he's looking for MacGyvering his surroundings, right? So he uses the light from the surgery and points it at the door so they can't see him when they come in.
Right.
And he has a weapon because Mr. Kaplan left her gun, and he can't move his right side. So he's having to use his left hand, and he's pressing his leg and the gun up against the bed to hold it up. Yeah, it was so awesome.
You could feel the pain. This was some of the best acting of the series because the expressions on Liz's face, the fact that she took charge, the interaction, right here with the weapon, you could feel his pain. And this was really just well put together.
This whole episode was so fast paced. I mean, I watched it several times because I kept missing stuff that was being said. They were saying everything and moving through scenes so fast.
Yeah. And so he makes it out, and everybody's kind of in their own corner, just doing everything they can to stay alive. Red, he's trying to get a weapon and then gets surrounded by agents, and he's done.
So I know. I was just like, hit the look on his face when he's on the floor. He could barely move and he's trying to get a weapon and all those guys come in. Oh my gosh. And then Liz. So when Liz was in the car with Leonard, and we forgot to mention this, but Leonard was actually he's the one that created the Fulcrum. Like he created the software and everything. That's why nobody knew how to get into it.
Right.
And so she's like, I have an idea. So the next thing we see is the CIA headquarters or the Pentagon, and the director of clandestine affairs is having a meeting and he gets interrupted. There's like someone there to see you. And Liz comes walking in with a briefcase. I was like, oh my God, Liz, what are you doing?
Yeah, and he has to put off a meeting with the president. It's like, the president expecting you. The president can wait.
Oh my God.
This is done. I have to take care of this. And she just comes strolling in.
Sets it up. She sets up the briefcase and starts running it. She starts running the file right in front of him and tells him,
you thought he didn't have it. Now he does. So now that what are they going to do with this? Because now that they made the attempt on his life, does he let it out or does he say...
She said it was a copy. She said, this is your copy. She gave him the briefcase, but Leonard copied it. He has hard copies of it.
Right, that was great. She didn't even pick it up and take with.
No, she left it. She left it there, and she left the key and everything, and he's looking at it like, oh my God. Yeah, he had never even seen it. He didn't even know what was on it.
Right.
And she ran it. He was just like, oh crap. Because everything is on there. Everything.
Yeah, all the operations, all the domestic. They've been running like their own domestic terrorist unit, which isn't really going to go down very well. I mean, the last thing we had that almost got to the presidency was the Iran-Contra affair back in the 80s, and man, that was a huge deal. This kind of information gets out, and presidents go to jail, and all sorts of things happen, and CEOs, powerful people. If this list goes out, that's huge. But the thing is, if she didn't leave, I think he would have tried to kill her just to get it.
She threatened him. She's like, this is gonna go right to the New York Times. She's like, I want you to stop that operation that you're in right now with Reddington.
And then he tries to talk his way out of, I can't do that.
No. She's like, this is a copy. If something happens, it's going out tomorrow morning.
You don't know the enemies you've just created.
Oh my gosh. And then it shows Reddington on his hands and knees with those men, and then they walk off. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank God.
And that's the question. If they were there to take out the target and not capture him, I was very surprised that they even hesitated, because the order wasn't to capture the target. The order was to eliminate the target.
Yeah.
So I think that was I think we had to suspend a little disbelief there, but man, what a great scene. Because, if you move to the left just a hair, everybody's muzzle went to the left. And if you move to the right, and then the guy, with the earpiece, it's just whispers in his ear and say, yeah. And then
they leave.
They leave. And so, of course, he knows Liz got the fulcrum and used it. So he knows what's going on. And then, the little tender scene between the two of them where he explains everything.
Right before she leaves, the director of clandestine affairs, he says something to her. He says how much he didn't realize how much she looked like her mother until this point. So he knows her mother.
Right.
And then Liz goes and sees Reddington. And she doesn't want to stay. She just kind of reports and she's going to leave. And he wants to talk to her about what happened with Tom, because he never got a chance to tell her why he hired Tom.
And the thing about the director of the Cabal, to me, it seemed like he was almost using that as an insult, or I know something you don't, or whatever it was. It wasn't like I knew your mother. It was more like a poking and prodding. Like, didn't you get that?
Yeah, it felt like that.
So I wonder if he's going to be the source of some information. Because, for Red and these people to stay alive, I don't see him staying alive much longer. There's other people on that panel that are going to be more pro Reddington, which, is, of course, that the old billionaire is gone. But I think Connolly would be more pro-red, and I think the other team members, I think the director now is just too anti-red, and he really kind of ran the gamut to try and prove that red didn't have. So I really see the story progressing where he gets killed off, but maybe Liz finds out something more about her mother.
Yeah. And so Liz and Reddington's, end of the last scene between them, they always do that, which I really enjoy, because it's always just heart-wrenching to watch.
Yeah.
And that's when he tells her about the Tom, how he hired Tom as, it was a friend of a friend, and he wanted to protect her. When he found out they were intimate, he fired him, and then he had his allegiance with Berlin. And then that's when he says, when he realized that she was in danger because of what he had done and hiring Tom, and then Tom changing his allegiance, that's when he turned himself into the FBI. Because he knew that he needed to be close to her to be able to protect her, and that she would find out the information on her own about Tom. All the information. He wasn't going to tell her, but she would find out about it. And she was like, is that all of it? And he's like, part of it. And that part when she was just like, you could have just said yes to make me feel better. I was just like,
once.
oh.
But that's
tear my heart out.
That's the most honest he's been in a long time, because he's saying, no, there's more information. If he'd have said yes, later on she would have come back and say, why didn't you tell me there was more?
Yeah.
And
at least he was being as honest as he could.
Right. And
at the moment.
Yeah. And so I think that was pretty amazing. The fact that he even said there is more, because he could have said, no, you've got it. You figured it all out and we're good now. Because they're really kind of back on good terms now. She knows that his motives were good. Although they finish up with her and Tom, and Tom's trying to work the angles and trying to get back in, and she's we can work with each other maybe. The big start is, you tell me all you know about Reddington.
So Connolly gets his seat. Okay, so there was a little exchange with the director of Caul, and he's talking to someone, and he's like, well, telling him what a good job he did and all this stuff, and he hands him a glass of whiskey, and we look up, and it's, Tom Connolly. Tom Connolly's the leak. He's the one that was giving him information, and now he has a seat at the table. And
tells, we know you had to betray a friend, which, of course, we know is Cooper.
Yep.
So we know Cooper is still in the good.
Well, Cooper's in a bad place.
Yeah.
He really is in a bad place. And then Tom is sitting on a bench, and the bench is familiar because it's a bench that Liz and Reddington have met at before. And Liz comes up and sits next to him and says she wants his help to find out more about Red. And she says, Reddington is going to devour me.
I think she's just saying that to play Tom. I don't think she really believes that. Because
I don't know. I believed her. I haven't figured out if Liz is playing a game, because so far they haven't really. I mean, she could be playing a game. That this could be part of her playing both sides, trying to get stuff out of Red, trying to get stuff out of Tom.
I think it is.
But I think genuinely she is hurt by what Reddington has done. I think she has genuine pain in her heart for the stuff that's happened.
It's a lot of stuff to take, but I really think the way that she's been just the past few episodes, if not this season in general, like last season, I would think, oh, she's just overwhelmed. She can't take it anymore. Poor emotional Liz. I don't believe that anymore. I think this character has come into its own, and she is just using Tom and so, yeah, you're right. Red's a bad man. You got to tell me everything you know if you love me. I'm just so devastated. You got to come to my protection and tell me everything. And I think that's what she's going for. But I do think you're right. I don't think you're wrong. I think she is overwhelmed. It's just one thing that's just so hard to take right after another.
And it was a busy day with trying to keep Reddington alive right after she'd had a fight with him, and then finding out more information.
Yet again, she doesn't want to talk to him ever again. And 2 minutes later, she's, clutching his breast and trying to get him his life back. And
if I was in her shoes, I'd be acting the same way. I would, just because she has, they are really close and intimately, like father-daughter or whatever. They have this connection and they can't let each other go. Like, he's been watching over her whole life. And the first thing he said when he woke up from his surgery was, "Where's Liz? How's Liz?"
Right.
He's not even concerned about himself at all. She is his whole world. And all this stuff happened, and now he's just backpedaling, trying to fix it.
And that's the angle that Tom Connolly played, is that maybe Liz is the one getting played. And we know it's not true, because you go into the most personal realm of Red, and there's pictures of her all over the place. So it's that balance between... Ooh. I think
you're going to have a storm.
I know. I could actually see the flash. That must have been right near my house. That's because this episode was so electrifying.
That is awesome. I'm going to go storm chasing in probably about a week.
That's cool. I'm surprised I still have a computer. So, we've had so many exciting things going on. Like I was saying, I think Connolly believes that Liz is getting played. When Cooper's boss starts going, how can you believe Liz, after all that's happened, after her episode where, she had gone underground and caused all sorts of hassle. It was actually Connolly that came to her defense. So, what if she's the one getting played? And, Red is this kind of, he's a hero, but he's still an anti-hero, because he's still a very bad guy. And maybe his cause is just, or his cause is revenge, but in the end, he's on the opposite side of the law.
Right.
Well, can you think of anything else?
No, but next week's episode.
Oh, yes.
Is going to be Quan Zhang.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting.
That will. I saw the preview for it, and, the something crazy with dead bodies, and the guy picking them up is trying to sell them to this guy, and he's going to make them look beautiful. It's some crazy stuff, so it's definitely something to look forward to. I think that episode is going to go back to like a classic Blacklist, but it'll be interesting to see if there's more resolution to this story, or if it's just a straight Blacklister.
Yeah, it's sweeps time, so it could be we're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Let's say we are, this was the SMG Blacklist podcast, brought to you by the Southgate Media Group at www.southgatemediagroup.com. You can find all sorts of different podcasts and blogs there. Melissa and I also have the Bosch podcast, and also I have Trumpet Talk. And Melissa, you have a couple fan groups?
Yeah, so we have we have the Blacklist, we have Blacklist Pod for our Twitter, we have the Blacklist Pod for our Instagram. I also have the Killing fan group. I'm co-administrator for that, and the Catch fans and Bosch TV fan group.
We've been really busy lately.
Yes, we have.
And I also...
and my Twitter account is at MSMaxi. What's your Twitter?
At JWingrosky. We have a Facebook page, and don't forget to go on there. We've actually been getting a lot of comments, especially the father-daughter angle. So
that's right.
Go to the Facebook page. All right. Well, that's about all we have until next time.
See you then.